Binge the full week of The Ray Taylor Show ad-free over at patreon.com/inspired disorder.
What you manifest in your mind, you can bring to reality.
Hate, the new movie that just hit Netflix, and boy, did I enjoy it. I enjoyed this. It's an action movie, female-led action movie, which there's been a good string of them. Most recently, Gunpowder Milkshake, which there's some similarities visually, despite being set a lot at night, still very bright and colorful. This one being set in Japan, which the city of Japan adds a lot to the ability and beauty to be so bright and colorful throughout the movie. It's headlined, it is starring Mary Elizabeth Winstead, who is most notably known for being in Scott Pilgrim versus the Entire World, as well as 10 Cloverfield Lane, directed by Dan the Man Trachtenberg. And she's amazing. She was given off like towards the end of this film, serious John McClane vibes. Like straight up Die Hard, just kind of not average. Like she's not average. I mean, build wise, most women are built kind of more average. You're not getting a lot of women looking like Arnold Schwarzenegger or Sylvester Stallone. Let's just put it that way. But in addition to that, just beaten up and haggard by the end of this film due to a lot of things. There's even a scene where windows get blown out in one of the scenes. And that's all a positive. Even the soul of this movie feels a lot like a 90s movie, but handled a lot better. Like, it's not necessarily doing what John Wick is doing or even Gunpowder Milkshake, where it's this kind of fantastical reality. There's not like this massive world building going on in this movie. But still, like, it has that kind of feeling of the 90s action where it's mostly action, right? The plot is there just to enable action moments. And the plot of this movie is pretty good, too, despite being pretty basic, which, having an overcomplicated plot doesn't do movies very well all the time. So from top to bottom, I loved it. I highly recommend people check it out. I'm going to talk about more of it, specific scenes, spoilers probably, but, if you like action movies, this one's amazing. This is probably, as far as, out of the female-led action movies, right, you have Atomic Blonde that came out a few years ago with Charlize Theron. Also, Mad Max Fury Road, similarly starring her. You got, the Hunger Games franchise. You got Wonder Woman. You got the Gunpowder Milkshake movie. I would say Mary Elizabeth Winstead is if Planet Hollywood was going to come back and be more inclusive, I could see her being one of the trifecta. Just kick out Bruce Willis, right? Because he's not really doing much good stuff anyway. The action movies he's doing is pretty right-wing wet dream kind of things, very, very much like Guns Are Our Savior type movies. Kick him out. All those guys are pretty irrelevant nowadays, especially in the action movie franchise landscape. She would definitely be one of them. I would say probably the most badass, aside from Kill Bill. That's probably on the same as far as if we're doing a Mount Rushmore of badass female action leads. You got Fury Road, Furiosa. You got Kate from this movie, and then you got Kill Bill. You got Beatrix Kiddo. I would say those are the three so far, and there's probably another one that I'm missing. It's a very white list. I'm sure there's amazing that I'm blanking on. So let's just move on from that. Although being a Mount Rushmore, it is a very white type of a monument. So sadly, in that vein, I accomplished the replication. But this movie, I really enjoyed it. Check it out. It also has a really fun sidekick that kind of comes into Kate's life throughout the progression of this movie. So let me get into the movie. So the premise of this movie is Kate is on her last job. She wants to quit. She's an assassin. Woo, been there, seen that. But, you know, after her last thing, she kind of has this fling, right? Meets a guy in a bar, does something like a scene that could have easily been in every male-led action movie from current time back into the first of where, you know, the action star has their way, has their sexual moment with this person, and then just tells them to get the fuck out and there's money on the table for them, right? But instead it's Mary Elizabeth Winstead, which is like, all right, I'm in it. I'm already in this thing. Like, it has like a small action scene, little fight scene. But what you see is that she gets poisoned. She gets radiation poisoning or whatever. And the movie is her trying to track down this antidote, right? And then within that journey, she runs across, during actually her last job involved this girl, Annie, who she goes back to use as a bargaining chip to try and find out where she can get this antidote. And it's a really fun, just kind of journey. It's a lot like Crank in a lot of ways, except for more grounded. You know, Crank is so much like a video game movie, where this one, you know, as grounded as you can be. I mean, it's not as video gamey, but she is poisoned. You know, she's trying to seek the cure. And meanwhile, she's taking stimulants in like these EpiPen type of syringes that she keeps jabbing herself. So it has, and that's literally stimulants. Same thing with Crank. So it had those vibes. I wouldn't say tonally they're similar at all. Very similar, very different action movies. But this one, you know, premise-wise, that whole idea, which is a standard kind of action-y. You know, even one of the Mission Impossibles they had it, the Camorra or whatever, the Camorra virus, had a very similar type of a thing. So it sets up for her to go, and throughout this whole thing, she's sick, right? Good actress, right? Which you don't really get a lot of good acting necessarily, or moments for good acting, I guess, in action movies. But she pulls it off, you know. Being sick, getting progressively sicker, and also like getting like she's in fights, man. She is in fights, and good fun action fights. There's a car scene that felt a little bit more like a video game cutscene than it did. Like, it wasn't on the scale of like exciting car chase scenes in a movie. This one's probably not on the list anywhere. I mean, even like it felt almost like Fast and the Furious Tokyo Drift, kind of like it felt very video gamey. But it's also set in Japan, so maybe stylistically it takes more from that culture anyway and fits better. I don't know. It wasn't bad. It wasn't like a bad scene, but it's just as far as, you know, there's a hierarchy of car chase scenes in action movies, and I wouldn't necessarily put this one on that scale. But it still looked cool and fit with the whole style of everything, which was nice. It was nice having a movie set somewhere that's not like an American city. You know, like John Wick's are all in the U.S. I guess Atomic Blonde was probably overseas. But Japan's always a fun place because, like, aesthetics, it's so, like, neon and bright and video, and it's just, like, it feels like a city of the future that's currently existing now. Like, there's not really any city in the U.S. that feels as futuristic as Japan does that I can think of. I mean, at all, I can't think of. Maybe like Times Square in New York is the closest, but that's just like, that doesn't feel futuristic necessarily. That just feels like commercial. Those feel like big billboards. Which, you know, I'm sure a lot of similar things are on those bright, shiny screens in Japan too. But being a foreigner, it's nice. It's like a change, a shift. It's you know, you're getting different flavor of characters. A little over 4 years ago, I started The Many Faces. It's an ongoing series of abstract ink portraits. Each piece is improvised. Each piece is released daily. Start collecting now. Head on over to inspireddisorder.com/TMF. That stands for The Many Faces. And save yourself 25% when you use coupon code RTS. That stands for The Ray Taylor Show, because that's what you're listening to, and I love you. So I want you to save 25% when you use that coupon code. Head on over to inspireddisorder.com/TMF and use coupon code RTS to save 25% when you start collecting one of over 1,600 original ink paintings. By myself, I made them. Support me. I love you. Back to the show. There's also a samurai duel in the movie, which, you could do that in the U.S. Kill Bill. I don't know how many of those duels actually took place in the U.S., but, it's more fitting in some ways, maybe stereotypical to have a samurai duel in Japan, but I thought it was badass. A lot of double crosses go on. You have Woody Harrelson is her handler, right? Guy that's kind of, brought her up in the thing, but also somebody involved in double crosses because, surprise, you're trying to quit being an assassin at a young age, by the way. It's not like she's some old grizzled vet. I mean, she's probably grizzled and a vet, but not old. So quitting at a fairly young age, like in her early 30s. And what happens when assassins try and quit the game in movies? They get got. It's not easy to get out of that game. That life brings you back in. And Woody Harrelson, despite being her handler, this kind of father figure to her, this kind of friend, of course, is the one involved in trying to end her, and being the one of not necessarily knowing the means at which she would be got. Like, he didn't know she was going to get radiation poisoning. That's a little messed up, but he pulled the trigger. He just wasn't aware of the type of bullet inside, which another thing, the fact that it's in Japan, I have a feeling she has this, I want to say pink. I'm colorblind. It's like red or pink, maybe bright, like zebra striped silencer on her gun through only a small part of the beginning of this movie. And then at some point she loses it. And I got to say, it's the only time I have kind of felt bad for somebody losing their gun. Just because, it felt like it was personal to her, And she never finds it. Spoilers, she doesn't find her gun again. But when it happened, I'm like, oh no, she lost her gun. Because it has the decorative silencer on it. Just little bits of character, which is something that John Wick and Gunpowder Milkshake did a lot, except for they did so much character that they built worlds. They built these like fantasy worlds around it, which I don't know. Both of those movies could have been based on comic books, and it was more of just an accurate depiction of worlds created in those forms of literature. I don't know. I don't know the backgrounds of any of these movies, other than they're all great. I enjoy, as far as action films go, the John Wick series is amazing. Gunpowder Milkshake, I had a ton of fun. That was like super fun, inventive fight scenes and car chase scenes. It's very inventive as well. This one, top to bottom, it was like the best 90s action film that just happened to come out in 2021. But with like the directing ability and acting ability, all of like the bells and whistles and polishing that goes on with a modern day action film. But yeah, I really enjoyed it. Annie, great kind of she's somebody that started off as a victim of a hit. Not a victim, but she was like related to somebody who was a victim. And then she becomes a hostage later on to try and be used as leverage, and then becomes what's her face's sidekick, Kate's sidekick. and it's great. Like, she's like this young teenage, angsty, annoying, whining, complaining kid. That's also, there's like little dashes. She's dealing with racism because she's biracial, and they're like, there's a couple comments in there where it's like, oh, you're not a pureblood or whatever, which I thought was interesting. Like like all of those little moments, like having, just the dash of racism that you'd probably hear that's in some ways refreshing, that it's just not American racism. It's not nice to see that racism exists in other places, but at least it's not the same type of racism that we're inundated in this country, especially kind of over the past 5-6 years. The decorative silencer was a nice touch. The city itself plays as a great setting for this movie. Just so much of it, little dashes of uniqueness that really, conversations that people have. It's a lot of female characters having conversations. Like one of the few, like one thing that no action movie from the 90s could ever pass would be the Bechdel that test. Where this one, like within the first 10 minutes does. I don't know if it's the first 10 minutes, but there's female characters that are having discussions that don't have to do with their significant other. And I enjoyed it. I really did, from top to bottom. I enjoyed this movie. Despite seeing the kind of twist, it was a bit inevitable, but at the same time, it's even when that twist happens where you see that Varric, who is Woody Harrelson's character, her handler, when you see that he was behind her being poisoned, even though unknowingly what was going to happen to her, but that she was going to be silenced in some way. When you see that he's basically the one that's causing her to go through this, he is the bad guy in this, that her mentor is now the villain. You also see, because of turmoil between Annie and Kate, you see Varric trying to recruit his next sibling, not sibling, his next student. He's going to raise Annie, who no longer has any attachments to family. He's going to, what is that called? Condition her into being an assassin for him, which is interesting, because it's almost seeing what happened, and there's flashbacks to seeing what happened with Kate's character as a young child, and there's like flashbacks to her being tested, like being sent in on jobs without bullets, so having to improvise and use knives. Which the knife stabbingness in this movie is, I would say, as sharp, pardon the pun, as the gun play in John Wick movies. Like, it is aggressive and efficient and fast. Disturbing. But yeah, great movie, top to bottom. Highly recommend it. Is there anything I missed? Double crosses, samurai duel, action movie, car chase, radiation poisoning, antidote. I think I got it all. Brilliant. So go check it out if you got Netflix and you want to watch a really fun action movie, and see, in my opinion, the I would love to see a series, a Kate series. Although it might have to be prequels. Put it that way. But yeah, check it out. It's called Kate. Sorry I spoiled that last bit. I mean, come on. I could be wrong. New episodes of The Ray Taylor Show come out every single day. Subscribe on IGTV, YouTube, everywhere else podcasts are found. Binge the full week ad-free over at patreon.com/Inspired Disorder. Buy Ray Taylor Show merch over at inspireddisorder.com. Follow the show on Instagram at Ray Taylor Show. Have a wonderful week, everybody. Peace out!